Good to see everyone here this morning. Is it good to be a Christian? Amen. Let's try that one more time. Is it good to be a Christian? Amen. That's great to be a Christian. Dee and I got to take a little vacation this last week for her fall break at school, and we stayed in a place on the beach there near Galveston, and had a real good time. We got up, I guess, the last morning, or last night, we realized that he didn't use up all our milk. And so there was a little corner in the grocery store close by there, so I walked over there and got me some almond milk, because that's what I read, and got me some milk, and got a few other things, and came back. And so the next morning, when she got up to get the milk, she took it out, and she said, I think the seal was broken. And so she didn't drink it. And I'd already thrown the receipt away. So there's that little bottle of milk across like $2 is gone. But when you see something that doesn't seem right, you lose your faith in it. You don't trust it, because if that seal wasn't broken, and maybe just one of those easy ones, you still don't want to take a chance, do you? Because if the seal is broken and somebody put something in it, you don't want to take a chance. So, guess what? The next time I go get milk, well, I'm going to check. Because I lost a little bit of faith, and now I'm going to have to double check. We go through that in life, don't we? There are certain stores that I go to whenever I'm there. I don't go to convenience stores very often, but if I ever do go by, whatever it is in a convenience store, one thing I always do, based on experience, is you check the expiration date. Because it may be long past. And many times you buy something and you get it, it's not good. And there are some stores nearby that sometimes you need to check the expiration date. But you lose a little trust, or you're not sure, and so you double check. Because you want to be sure. 100%, right? There's a few, for some reason, there's two particular places that we frequent sometimes that I've had experiences with that they get the orders wrong. One is Panera Bread, and one is Wendy's up here. But based on experience, every time I go to those places, before I leave the parking lot in the car, if I pick up an order, what do? I take it all out, and I check and make sure that what they put in the bag is what's supposed to be in the bag, because I don't want to get all the way home and then it not be complete. All of this experience. And from a spiritual standpoint, we need to always recognize how important faith is. In fact, in the New Testament it says, Paul says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because it's the power of God. Because in it there's revealed our righteousness. It gives salvation. And it's from faith unto faith. What does that mean? From the beginning to the end. Our faith is supposed to be strong. Our faith is supposed to be something that develops and grows over time. And the description of the armor of God, Paul says, above all else, take up the shield of faith by which you extinguish the flaming missiles of the evil one. And we know a lot about faith. We know faith, sometimes we explain it to kids. What is faith? You know, you believe in the win not because you see it, but because you see the results of it. And we come up with ways to explain and understand what faith is. And we know it's important as faith develops for a person not to have inherited faith, but to have their own faith. We know that faith without works is dead. The New Testament talks a lot about faith. And in Romans, Paul says, anything that's not of faith is sin. That ought to get our attention. Everything I do in life should be born from my faith, my belief, my relationship with Jesus. And that faith needs to grow and progress from the beginning where it starts. When we're baptized, we have an initial discipleship, and that discipleship has to progress and grow. Teach them to observe all things. It has to be a progression. Faith is no different Anyone can have faith, but whether it grows, increases, or decreases is up to us. Have you ever taken, not long ago, I was moving some books around and looked at an old album of pictures of me, all the school pictures, right? From kindergarten up into, like, I guess, junior high or so, I didn't care for that. But all those pictures, and then I look at my face in the mirror now, and a lot's happened, right? I'm uglier and all those things, right? But things have changed. We know that principle in life. We start young, we grow, things change about us emotionally, physically, spiritually. There's a progression that takes place. And faith is no different. If I have the faith of an infant spiritually, and I've been a Christian for a long time, something's wrong with that picture. In fact, Paul would write in Hebrews, by this time you ought to be eating steak, you ought to be eating meat, you ought to be mature in your diet, but you're still on milk. You're still on the basics. You need to grow and mature. Our faith is something that is so important to us, and we need to deepen our understanding of it, but we also need it to increase, to grow. Whether it decreases or whether it increases is up to us. How do you increase your faith? In Luke chapter 17, verse 5, the apostles said to the Lord, increase our faith. And then Jesus describes to them the faith of a mustard seed. How powerful just something so small can be. But how do you increase your faith? Well, let's just think, if you were to start Googling how to increase your faith, what kind of stuff would you see? What kind of stuff would come up as far as your faith developing and growing? Studying the Bible. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the Word of Christ. Meditation. A lot of us know how to study the Bible, but do we know how to meditate on Scripture? Think about David. Think about the Old Testament. Think about that. Spiritual discipline. Sometimes we live a little below our privilege because we don't equip ourselves fully with really not just studying the Word, but thinking about it. Learning to focus on it. That will increase our faith. Obeying God's will. As we practice what God tells us to do, we grow in our trust for Him and that experience, and our faith grows. Prayer. Praying. What are some other ones? Develop daily habits. People who do things on a regular, consistent basis will have a stronger faith. It's interesting, the Church of Christ did some studies. Our kids grow up, then when they get to that age, Princeton Research, Theological Research Center also did a bunch of research, and they say that most people's faith will change between 19 and 25 years old. In other words, you grow up, you go through high school, you graduate, you go to college. Many people's faith, what they grew up with, whatever it was, they could have been Buddhist, Catholic, they could have been Baptist, Church of Christ, whatever, but they will go through faith changes when they're in that age range. And when they studied it out, the kids who grew up going to church, going to Bible class, doing experiential things like mission trips and camps and things like that, having daily devotionals in their home, praying with their parents, those people's faith would stick. It wouldn't change. But those who just had a minimal exposure, maybe they came to church every Sunday morning, they were around worship, but that really wasn't a big part of their life, their faith would shift. And it's amazing to me. But just those consistent daily habits can make a huge difference. Being baptized, loving your brother, going where you learn. Those people that from here that go to Red River, does their faith increase or decrease because of that experience? I believe it increases. when a person goes to a lectureship, or kids go to camp, or they go on a mission trip, when you expose yourself to spiritual things, whether it's learning things through studying, or whether it's learning things through the experience of sharing your faith and doing service for other people, your faith will grow. Endure trials. Don't compromise the faith that you have. Avoid sin. Live by faith, not by sight. Trust in God. Put your weight on Him. It's kind of interesting. They say that when we've had a couple of couples get married here recently, they say that one of the major things that takes place the first 2 years of marriage is what? Building trust. Maybe you've known that person for a long time. Maybe you've dated for a long time. Maybe engaged for a long time. But when you first get married, you're developing trust for that person. If something happens in those first 2 years that fractures the relationship, it's hard to recover from, because it causes doubts and insecurities. It breaks the relationship down. But that's amazing to me. And then you go back to the principle of God telling the Hebrew warriors to stay at home for that long period of time after they got married, to learn how to take care of their wives. They wouldn't go to war. They would stay at home in that significant period of building trust. It's kind of interesting to me. We have to be able to put our whole weight on God and develop our trust in Him. If we don't trust Him, we're not going to live the way He wants us to live. Sometimes we can remind ourselves of things that inspires us individually. I got a little app on my phone, Got Faith. And last year I took a couple of ones that I liked and I put them together. These are 2 different ones I put together. And I read this every day, and it's helped me personally in my own picture. It's something I did, and I'm a weird one, so take it or leave it. But never let people's negative thoughts about you hinder you from accomplishing what God put in your heart. Dare to dream, dare to live it. Hear what others say, but listen to God. That's helped me in my own faith journey this last year or so. And sometimes when you discover things that inspire you to dig a little deeper, stretch a little further, that helps increase your faith. All those things are good and they're all important, and they give us some insight. But what did Jesus do with His disciples? How did He develop their faith? What were some of the key actions that Jesus was looking for in His disciples growing in their faith? Because He made statements like, when I come back, will I find faith on the earth? And certainly He had some frustrating moments with His disciples where they didn't have a lot of faith. And even when they did have faith, sometimes their hearts were still hard. Jesus made that expression, when I come back, will I find faith on the earth? And I think about that scripture, I think, what kind of faith will He see in me? Will it be full? Will it progress? Think about Abraham. When God first called him, and you look at that experience, and you look at where his faith was in the beginning, and then you look at him taking his son Isaac up on the mountain and offering him, absolutely, positively, 100% committed to God, believed that God could even bring his son back from the dead. That's the kind of faith I want God to see in me. And you think about people like Daniel. You think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their faith grew to a point where it was strong and steadfast and sure. Take Esther. She had the courage to go before the king, risking her life. In Mordecai's statement, maybe God has put you in the kingdom for such a time as this, and she steps out in faith and takes the risk. Think about people like Noah. I always embrace the story of Jacob because he was born and his name was Deceiver, Cheater. That was his name. That's who he was. And look at Jacob from the beginning and look at him at the end. And his name is changed. and he is something completely different, something completely transformed. What kind of actions do I take in my life to help me get that kind of faith? Let's take a quick look this morning. Let's look at 3 actions of building faith. First of all, be courageous. The story is set in Matthew chapter 14. Jesus he just fed the 5,000. Jesus had been doing miracles and working with his disciples. The crowd wanted to make Jesus king. And so Jesus tells his disciples, I want you to get in the boat, I want you to go ahead of me, and I'm going to turn the crowd away. And then Jesus goes to a quiet place to pray. Over 15 times in the Gospels, Jesus goes out to a solitary place and spends time in prayer with God. His disciples are in the boat. They're out in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee was about 6 miles wide. They're halfway across, about 3 miles. There's a storm, and the storms on the Sea of Galilee can get pretty rough and violent. So they're in the midst of this storm, and Jesus comes walking to them on the water. And what do they think they see? They think it's a ghost, because people don't walk on the water. They don't automatically think, oh, it's Jesus. They think it's something really weird happening. Blackbeard's ghost? No, that's not that. He wasn't around then. But they think it's something that frightens them. And Jesus says, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. If you're going to have faith, you've got to have courage. You have to have the ability to put your fears behind you. Think about the courage it took for Noah to build the ark when everybody else was ridiculing him for what he did. Think about the courage it took Daniel to keep praying when he was told not to pray, and the threat of being thrown into the lion's den. What takes courage from us? In 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 13 and 14, a little section I like a lot. It says, be strong, be men of God, be courageous, do everything in love. You and I as Christians are supposed to be people who have courage. Courage to do things that frighten us. Courage to do things that seem scary. Goliath stood against God's armies. Everybody in Israel was shaking in their sandals. They were hiding out. They were scared to death of Goliath. And here comes a shepherd boy with a sling and defeats him. That took courage. When Caleb and Joshua went into the promised land and everybody else with them came out saying we cannot do it, and they with courage said we can do it, it took courage to stand against everybody else, didn't it? We have to have courage. If I know somebody's in sin and I know I've got to go to them and talk to them about it, it takes courage for me to do that. It takes courage to go invite somebody to study the Bible with me that I know might automatically look at me and laugh because they don't believe there's a God at all. That takes courage. Do I display courage for Jesus? And the interesting thing is he says, don't be afraid, it's me. And as soon as they realized it was Jesus, the fear was lifted. They weren't afraid because they knew Jesus had their back. They knew Jesus would take care of them. That Jesus was in the midst of doing all these miracles, and they were learning and they were seeing what power he had. When we can't handle things, Jesus can. And when he shows up and when we invite him into our life, and we invite him into our circumstances, we can face those things with courage. Jesus said, stand at the door and knock. You got to let me in. Sometimes it takes courage to let Jesus in, because when Jesus comes in, he's going to clean house. And he may make you do things that you don't want to do. But it's part of us having strong faith is developing courage. I like this quote. Walk boldly through the door God opens for you, and don't become discouraged when he closes them. Courage. Be strong and courageous. The second thing is to take action. Get out of the boat. One of the classic examples of faith that's been used in sermons for a long, long time. I heard it when I was a kid. The tightrope walker at Niagara Falls. The guy's got a wheelbarrow. He goes across the tightrope. He comes back. He fills it full of bricks. Goes across. The fans are screaming and yelling and all excited. And he said, "Who believes I can put a person in the wheelbarrow and take them across?" And they all say, yeah. And then he says, "Who wants to go first?" And everyone's quiet. It's one thing to have a belief that something's going to happen. It's another thing to get in the wheelbarrow. It's one thing to believe Jesus can do something. It's another thing to get out of the boat. Now, when this whole series with the Houston Astros started with New York, I believe my prediction was they would win the seventh. Sorry, I have to admit I started having some doubts when they went to New York. All right? Faith is about taking action and not letting our fears and doubts take that away. So what happens? Jesus says it is I. Peter says he's ambitious. He says, "Call me and come out. I want to walk on the water too." And Jesus says, "Come on." And Peter gets out, begins to walk on the water. But he takes his eyes off Jesus and he begins to sink. What does that tell us about our faith development? When we focus on Jesus, our faith is hindered. When we take our eyes off Him, we're going to sink. Our faith is going to decrease. It's going to become less effective in our lives to do what God wants us to do. We have to be willing to get out of the boat and take risks, to take action. When it comes to showing up for worship, you got out of the boat. You're here. When it comes to sharing your faith, you get out of the boat. When it comes to confessing your sin one to another, praying for each other so you be healed, you get out of the boat. When it comes to giving, you get out of the boat. When it comes to caring about people that are unlovable, your enemies, you get out of the boat. If our faith is going to grow, we have to be able to get out of the boat when it's difficult to get out of the boat. There's a lot of things I can do spiritually easy because it's just second nature to me at this point. Because of where I am in my spiritual growth. When I grew up doing martial arts and stuff, and there's a principle in martial arts called Mushin. It means empty mind technique. It's like eating, shaving, driving. A lot of us drive and it's just empty-minded. We don't even think about it. That's not good. But we do things by second nature. Mushin. There's some things about my faith that's Mushin. I just do them. I automatically do them. Because I've trained myself to do that for a long time. But there's some things that are difficult for me to do that I have to make myself do. When Jesus was in the garden, Father, let this cup pass from me, not my will be done but yours, that wasn't natural. That wasn't just happening. He was struggling. He didn't want to go through that separation from God. But he chose to do it and he willed to do it. I'm sure Abraham struggled with what God asked him to do. Take your son, Isaac, and offer him up. But he did it. He got out of the boat and he did it. And the final thing is you have to conquer your doubts. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught Peter, "You of little faith." So he rebukes him. Because he looks at Peter and he sees the potential. He sees where Peter could be. He sees where Peter should be. And he says, your faith is not where it should be. It's not as strong as it can be. And he wanted Peter to hear what he was saying. He says, "Why do you doubt?" And when he climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were with him in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." And they worshiped him. But we know that their hearts were still hard, and they were struggling. At the end of this chapter, you know what the story is? They get to the other side, and all the people are coming, and they see Jesus, and they're bringing sick people to Him, because they didn't just see Jesus walk on the water. They weren't over there when all this other stuff was happening. But they knew that Jesus had power, and they believed that He could heal. And they went to Him, and they said, just let us touch the hem of your garment, and we'll be healed. That's pretty strong faith. His disciples have been walking everywhere with Him. They've been experiencing everything with Him. And yet, they were struggling with their faith. And these other people that didn't have all those experiences just believed. The doubts were gone. They believed. Do you have doubts? Well, maybe I don't doubt the existence of God. And maybe I don't doubt that He's going to come back. But do I have spiritual doubts? You better believe I do. Sometimes I don't know when to push and pull. Sometimes you try raising kids or working with addicts. And you try practicing tough love and thinking, did I do the right thing or did I not do the right thing? Should I push a little harder or should I step back a little bit? Should I be a little kinder? Do you ever have doubts? Yeah. But sometimes you have to learn to get those doubts out. But especially when it comes to our faith, there's no room for doubt. Doubts can be productive. Doubts can be constructive if we let the doubts lead us to a stronger foundation. How do you overcome your doubts? Remember doubting Thomas? Unless I see His hands and put my hand in His side, I'm not going to believe what He's telling me to guys. I've been around them. I'm not believing y'all. I got to see it myself. And what do we know? It says, and He said to Thomas, put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting. What do you do with doubt? Stop. One thing you do is you just stop. But that's hard. And believe. You got to pour out the doubt and pour in the belief. Thomas said to Him, my Lord and my God. Then Jesus said to him, because you have seen me, you have believed, but blessed are those who have not seen me and yet believe. What do we do with doubts? Here's just some ideas. We're going to go through them real quick. When you have doubts, we've got a front row of teenagers up here. I remember when I was 15 years old, I was baptized when I was 13. Walked in my granddad's shop one day. He had a red door on the front of his machine shop. I grabbed the handle, and all of a sudden this thought came to me, what if there is no God? Out of nowhere. Is that a doubt? It's the seed of a doubt. What did I do with that? I looked for answers. I studied things about Christian evidences. I got my faith stronger. Are people going to have doubts? Yeah, doubts are going to come. But it's what we do with them that are important. Admit you have doubts. Be specific about what they are and ask God for help. Search your doubt and find its root. What's the real cause of where those doubts are coming from? Study the evidence that proves what you believe is true. I mean, we have great resources available. We even have a Church of Christ group called Apologetics Press that has good, solid information about all those things. But doubts are going to come. Why do most people not believe in God? Because of human suffering. Look at what's going on around us in our world. Hurricanes, fires. I mean, it makes me sick at my stomach when I read news about Puerto Rico right now. The suffering that's going on. Some people look at those circumstances and don't believe. How are most people converted from atheism? Fulfilled prophecy. Recognizing that when God said it, it happened later on. Study the evidence that proves what you believe is true. Have confidence in Christianity. Sometimes when I was younger, I had to recognize if I'm not a Christian, what's my alternative? Sometimes focusing on the fact that what I have is solid and believing in that is significant. Be honest with yourself about the nature of truth and fill your thoughts with truth. God's Word. Pray. Remember, your faith is not based on what we feel, but on what we know. Realize doubt is often the birth pains of deepened faith. Sometimes don't freak out when you have a doubt. Use it to deepen your faith. Did Abraham have any doubts? Did Noah have any doubts? Daniel have any doubts? We don't really know for sure what the extent that was. Did Gideon have doubts? Yeah, he did. And he had to put the fleece out a couple of times. Sometimes you read that story and you think, what is wrong with him? Why couldn't he just have faith? I think God could have got a little upset because he was so weak in his faith. No. But he developed and his faith grew to the point he stood valiantly for God. Just a few last things. Be ready to live with mystery. The revealed things belong to God, but I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The mysteries, the secret things belong to God, but the revealed things belong to us. Make the main things the main things. Live according to the faith you still have and doubt your doubts. Just a few thoughts to think about. Jesus said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed. But does He want our faith to be small? No. He wants our faith to be Abraham's kind of faith at the end. Esther's kind of faith at the end. Noah's kind of faith at the end. He tells us by faith they did all these things, and He shows us the pinnacle of where they were. That's where He wants us. He wants us to progress and grow to that kind of faith. He replied, because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as this mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible with you. Sometimes, if you have just a little, that can make a difference. But God wants us to increase and grow in our faith. What's your faith journey like? Where are you? Is your faith the same today as it was when you first became a Christian? Is it growing? Is it maturing? And what are you doing to feed your faith? Take the lead. Have you ever done a trust fall? You're standing there and some other people are supposed to catch you. I remember the youth minister doing that with my youth group for the first time. I thought they weren't good. I was afraid they were just going to let me go. Right? If you ever repel, you got to put all your weight on the rope and just let go. How do you need to let go and let God? Maybe it's by being baptized today. Maybe it's something else we can help you with. But let's all stand up and strive to have deeper, richer, more vibrant faith. From faith unto faith. Beginning to end, as we see.